You ever sit across from someone you've loved for over a decade and feel like a stranger? That was me. Across the glass table in our penthouse dining room, watching Vanessa scroll through emails while absently sipping a martini. The view of the city sparkled behind her like a goddamn magazine cover. Her posture was perfect, legs crossed, one manicured hand on the stem of her glass, the other on her phone. She didn't look up once. It was like living with a statue. Beautiful, icy, expensive as hell. Vanessa was everything the magazines said she was. Powerhouse CEO, icon of modern leadership, the kind of woman Fortune 500 execs feared and fawned over in equal measure. Hell, even our friends, well, her friends, spoke of her like she was part goddess, part Terminator. She's unstoppable, they'd say, grinning like starstruck idiots. But at home, she barely spoke to me. Sex had disappeared months ago, replaced with late meetings, charity galas, and emergency calls from Europe at 3 a.m. Our marriage had become polite, scheduled, hollow. "You're quiet," she finally said, without looking up. I looked at her, trying to remember what she used to sound like when she wasn't rehearsing a TED Talk. "Just thinking," I said, swirling the melting ice in my glass. "You should think louder," she muttered. "The silence is distracting." That was Vanessa. Every word a scalpel. I could have said 1,000 things. How lonely it felt. How long I'd been waiting for her to see me again. But instead, I nodded like a good little husband and excused myself to the bedroom. 2 weeks later, I was at one of her corporate events. Some awards ceremony, global visionary something something. Vanessa was being honored on stage in a red dress, so sharp it looked weaponized. Cameras flashed like lightning, and I stood in the shadows, the forgotten husband with a plastic smile. That's when I met her. Brooke. She stepped beside me with a glass of champagne and eyes like polished mahogany, warm, unreadable. "You look like a man who's been stood up," she said, voice low and unbothered. I glanced sideways, confused. "Your wife," she clarified, tilting her head toward the stage. "She's brilliant, isn't she? Cold as Saturn's moons. But brilliant." I blinked. "Do we know each other?" She smiled. "I'm Brooke, her executive secretary, the one who actually answers the calls and schedules the brilliance." There was something about her tone, mocking, but affectionate, honest. "I'm Daniel," I said, unsure why I suddenly felt 15 years younger. Her perfume was faint, something earthy and expensive. She wore a satin blouse that clung just enough to suggest softness beneath the businesslike poise. "I know who you are, Daniel," she said. "I also know you deserve more than silence." I laughed, though it wasn't funny. "Is that so? Trust me," she said, turning to face me fully. "No one knows what she's like behind closed doors better than me." There was a flicker in her eyes then, something I didn't understand. Not yet, but it lingered between us like the press of a hand that hadn't touched yet. That night, after Vanessa accepted her award with a speech that could have been written by AI, we rode home in silence. She scrolled her phone the entire way. Didn't even ask what I thought of her speech. Didn't notice the smell of Brooke's perfume still faintly on my jacket sleeve. A week passed. Vanessa flew out to Zurich. Another critical deal. She texted a thumbs-up emoji when I told her the dishwasher finally broke. Then Brooke called. "Vanessa forgot a file," she said. "Sensitive financials. Can I drop it off?" I said yes. I don't know why. When she arrived, she was in jeans and a cashmere sweater, no makeup, and yet I felt like the air changed the second she stepped into the house. She handed me the folder. "Thanks," I said, not even glancing at it. "You want a drink?" She hesitated, then nodded. We sat in the living room with scotch and silence. Then we talked. For hours. About work, about books, about how she always wanted to live on a farm even though she'd probably hate the bugs. She asked about me. Not my job. Me. I told her about my father's stroke. About how I used to paint. Once, before the company Vanessa started needed someone to anchor her world. Brooke listened like she was seeing me for the first time, like someone finding a forgotten photograph in a drawer. At one point, she tucked her legs under her on the couch, and her sweater slipped off one shoulder. I noticed the curve of her collarbone, the faint shimmer of skin that begged to be touched. She didn't lean in, didn't move, but I swear the air between us pulsed. "You're not invisible," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. And that one sentence shook something loose in me, something I hadn't felt in years. She left soon after, gently. I stood at the door long after she was gone. the scent of her perfume clinging to the air like a question. That night, I lay in bed beside a cold pillow and wondered when I'd stop being a man and become just an accessory, a crownless king in a hollow throne. I didn't tell Vanessa I was coming. It was one of those mornings where I stared at her side of the bed after she'd left, the sheets still perfectly smooth, and thought, screw it. I need to see for myself. I showered, threw on a collared shirt, and drove straight to her company's headquarters in Midtown. Vanessa's name was etched into the building's entrance in gold. V. Mercer Group, Strategic Global Solutions. I'd helped fund this place with the last of our savings, back when it was just a dream and a half-dozen whiteboards. Now it stood like a shrine to her ambition. The receptionist offered a smile so rehearsed it could have been automated. Can I help you? I hesitated, then gave a slow nod. Yeah, I'm here to see Vanessa Mercer. She blinked, then her eyes widened. Oh, of course, Mr. Mercer. Brooke can escort you up. And just like that, she was summoned. Brooke appeared moments later. She walked like someone who didn't just move through space, but owned it, heels clicking sharp against marble floors, posture flawless. This time, she wore a tailored black skirt that hugged her hips, a pale lavender blouse, and just a hint of something citrus on her skin. Daniel, she said, surprised but not unsettled. This is unexpected. Thought I'd surprise Vanessa, I said, trying to sound casual. Her smile curved like a secret. You'll find she doesn't like surprises. I know, I muttered. I'll take you up. You'll want to see this. There was something loaded in her tone. Something just for me. We stepped into the elevator. The tension between us was there. Alive. Unspoken, but electric. I caught her watching me in the mirrored walls. Not overtly, but with the kind of glance that lingered just a second too long on my mouth. Vanessa in yet? I asked. She's here, Brooke said, her voice low. But not exactly working. The elevator doors opened to the executive floor, top of the tower. I expected sleek efficiency. Instead, I saw chaos. Phones ringing. People talking over each other. Papers scattered across desks. It looked like a war room in disarray. Brooke moved through it like a conductor through an orchestra missing half its instruments. She's in her corner office, Brooke said, guiding me past glass walls. As we passed, people nodded politely to me, though I could see the curiosity behind their eyes. What's the husband doing here? Outside Vanessa's office, Brooke paused. She's busy. But while you're here, let me show you something. Before I could object, she turned sharply and led me into a boardroom across the hall. It was quieter there. The blinds were half drawn, soft light cutting shadows across the table. She set her tablet down, tapped a few times, and turned the screen toward me. Emails, memos, schedules. Brooke's initials were all over them. All the strategy, logistics, even speeches that bore Vanessa's signature, Brooke had drafted them. She's the face, Brooke said, voice calm, but I'm the hands. I looked at her. You run the company? I run her company, she said. That's not the same thing. She built the name. I keep it from falling apart. I didn't know what to say. I sat down slowly. I was flicking over an itinerary for an international conference, entirely written by Brooke, down to the networking cues. She's become abstract, Brooke continued. High level, inspirational, but disconnected. Most of us haven't had a real conversation with her in months. I send her notes. She nods, then vanishes behind champagne galas and red carpet keynotes. She sat across from me, crossing her legs. She used to be different, she added, watching me. Yeah, I murmured. She used to be mine. The silence sat heavy between us for a moment. Then Brooke leaned in. Tell me something, Daniel. What do you want? I hesitated. My heart beat a little faster, not from the question, but from how she asked it. Like she already knew I didn't have an answer. I don't know anymore, I said honestly. Brooke reached across the table, not to touch me, but her fingers brushed against mine as she pulled a pin toward her. The contact small, but it sent a current up my arm. Maybe you should find out, she said softly. She stood, straightened her skirt. Vanessa's available now. Want me to tell her you're here? Yeah, I said. My voice caught slightly, and I wasn't sure why. Brooke walked to the door, paused, then looked back. You're a good man, Daniel. But even good men can drown in someone else's image. Then she was gone. And I sat there, stunned, staring at Vanessa's empire, wondering if she was ever truly its queen. Vanessa left for the airport that Friday afternoon without saying goodbye. Just a text, Zurich till Monday. Don't wait up. No kiss, no call. Nothing. The silence didn't even hurt anymore. It just confirmed what I'd already known. Whatever held us together was now just memory and mortgage paperwork. That evening, as I sipped scotch in the kitchen, the doorbell rang. At first, I figured it was food delivery. Vanessa's assistants often sent things to the wrong address. But when I opened the door, it wasn't a delivery driver standing there. It was Brooke, hair loosely pinned, wearing a forest green blouse tucked into dark jeans. Casual, but polished. She held a slim leather folder and a bottle of wine. Vanessa forgot these. She held up the folder. I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside. Come in. She walked in like she belonged there. I should have known better than to invite her inside. But she didn't feel like a threat. She felt like oxygen. The kind of woman who listened when you spoke, and more dangerously, remembered everything you said. Nice place, she said, glancing around. Very curated. That's Vanessa, I muttered, motioning toward the living room. I just live in the museum. She smiled as she followed me inside, setting the wine down on the marble counter. Do museums serve drinks? They do tonight, I replied, pouring us each a glass. We sat across from each other, the lights low, city skyline glowing outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. She kicked off her heels and curled her legs beneath her on the couch, effortlessly graceful. We talked about little things at first. Travel, music, how she hated the term girl boss, but was once called that in a GQ article about Vanessa. She gets the headline, Brooke said, and I'm the footnote. There was no bitterness in her voice. Just resignation. You could leave, I said. Find your own spotlight. Brooke tilted her head, watching me. And go where? She said. This is the only stage I've had for years. That struck something in me. The feeling of staying for something that used to mean everything, and now just barely existed. You and Vanessa, she said, carefully now. How long has it been like this? I stared at the rim of my glass. A while, I said quietly. It started small. Missed dinners. Canceled weekends. Then it was months without sex. And finally, she just stopped looking at me. Brooke said nothing at first. Just sipped her wine. But her eyes were soft with something that felt dangerously close to empathy. I used to wonder if it was me, I added. If I got too boring. Too dependable. Like I wasn't stimulating anymore. She set her glass down. Daniel. I looked up. Don't do that, she said. Don't carry her absence like it's your burden. Her voice was steady. Her eyes locked on mine. And for a second, something unspoken passed between us, an acknowledgement that we were two people orbiting a woman who had stopped reaching back. I shifted on the couch. My thigh brushed against hers, barely, but it was enough. The moment stretched. She didn't pull away. The air between us tightened, charged and humming. Her blouse had slipped slightly, revealing the edge of a lace strap. Her lips parted like she was about to say something. But instead, she reached for her wine again, her fingers brushing mine. I should go, she said, though her tone didn't match her words. Stay a little longer, I said. And she did. We didn't talk about work anymore. We talked about books. Her childhood. My father's stroke. Her fear of being invisible even when standing in the middle of a room full of applause. By midnight, we were sitting closer. I watched the way her collarbone rose and fell as she laughed. The way her lips curled when she listened, truly listened. She had this habit. Every time she made a point she cared about, she'd touch my arm. Lightly. Without thinking. It wasn't seductive. It was instinctive. Natural. And that made it worse. When she finally stood, I walked her to the door. There was no kiss. But when she looked up at me from the threshold, eyes warm and unreadable, I felt it. The want. The ache. The flicker of something forbidden just waiting to be lit. Good night, Daniel, she said. Good night, Brooke. She stepped outside. Paused. Turned back. You deserve more than silence, she said again. And then she was gone. I stood at the door for a long time, my hand still on the knob, my pulse loud in my ears. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, alone in that cold museum of a marriage, remembering the way she looked at me, not like a husband, not like a man who used to be something, but like a man who still was. I told myself it was just lunch. Just lunch. Just catching up. Just harmless. That was a lie I wanted to believe. Brooke suggested a quiet bistro downtown, midweek, barely populated. I told myself I went because I was curious. Not desperate. Not drawn. Just curious. When I arrived, she was already there, seated at a corner table near the window, one leg crossed over the other, a silk scarf around her neck. It wasn't just how she looked, it was how she looked at me. Like I wasn't invisible. Like I was someone worth dressing for. She stood to greet me with a kiss on the cheek that lingered half a second longer than necessary. I caught the scent of her perfume again, something woodsy and warm, laced with citrus and smoke. Every time I smelled it, it got harder to forget. "You look like you needed this," she said. I sat down. I did. We ordered wine. Daytime wine. Dangerous wine. She laughed at something I said, something stupid. I can't even remember what, but her laughter was real. And I realized, with a strange pang of guilt, that I couldn't remember the last time Vanessa had laughed like that. Brooke leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table, her blouse dipping just enough to draw my gaze. She didn't adjust it, didn't pull back. Her eyes flicked to mine, and she smiled like she'd caught me mid-sin. We ate slowly, talked slowly, danced around the edge of something neither of us wanted to name. "Tell me what you're thinking," she said, her voice low and intimate. I hesitated. "I think." I began. "I haven't felt like this in years." "Seen?" she asked. "Wanted?" Her lips parted slightly, and she leaned even closer. "Then maybe I'm not the only one crossing a line." She reached across the table and touched my hand, just a finger trailing across my knuckles. But it felt like a strike of lightning under the skin. My breath caught. I didn't move. I didn't pull away. It wasn't an accident anymore. That night, I couldn't stop replaying it. Her voice. Her scent. The warmth of her skin against mine. I didn't sleep. Again. 2 days later, she texted, "Drinks tonight? If you're free." Vanessa was still out of town. Deal finalization, her text had said. The timing wasn't lost on me. Brooke came to the house again. She brought bourbon this time. No folder. No excuse. "I wasn't sure you'd say yes," she said as I let her in. "I wasn't sure either," I replied. But I didn't hesitate. We drank slowly in the living room, the air between us thick with unsaid things. The distance we pretended to keep was shrinking by the minute. "I can leave," she whispered, setting her glass down, turning her body slightly toward me. "Do you want to?" I asked. "No." I didn't either. She looked at me, really looked. And then she moved closer. Her knee brushed mine. Her hand rested gently on my chest. And I felt myself breaking. When she kissed me, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't hungry. It was intentional. The kind of kiss that tasted like a question you already know the answer to. My hands found her waist. Hers slid behind my neck, fingers threading into my hair. We sank into each other slowly, deliberately, like a decision made over time. When we finally pulled back, she looked up at me with eyes that held both guilt and certainty. "We shouldn't," I murmured. She traced her thumb along my jawline. "But we are." We didn't make it to the bedroom. She pulled me down to the rug in front of the fireplace, and we undressed each other like we were uncovering secrets. Her skin was warm, her breath uneven, her touch eager but reverent. When her body pressed against mine, I felt alive again, completely, terrifyingly alive. There was no rush, no fumbling, just that low, delicious ache of rediscovery. Her moans were soft, coaxed out of her lips like confessions. Her nails slid down my back when I sank into her, her legs wrapping around me instinctively. And in that moment, I forgot everything: Vanessa, the marriage, the years of neglect. It was just Brooke and the sound of our bodies learning each other for the first time. We didn't speak afterward. We lay there in silence, our breathing slowing, limbs tangled, the room still thick with sex and consequence. She rested her head on my chest. "I wasn't planning this," she whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Neither of us had planned it. But here we were, and nothing would ever be the same. The morning after, I woke up before her. She was still curled beside me on the couch, one hand splayed across my chest, her breath soft and even. A thin sheet was tangled around us, barely hiding the aftermath of what we'd done. My body ached in the best way, but my mind was a mess. Sunlight broke through the curtains. My phone buzzed somewhere nearby. I ignored it. Nothing outside this room felt real yet. Then Brooke stirred. She blinked slowly, looked up at me, and offered a faint, drowsy smile. "Regret?" she asked. "No," I said truthfully. "Just gravity." We both knew what we'd crossed last night. Not just a line, but an entire continent of choices. "I should shower," she murmured, sitting up and stretching, letting the sheet fall just enough to tease me all over again. But something in her tone was different. A hesitation I hadn't heard before. I followed her to the kitchen while she hunted for coffee. "You okay?" I asked, watching her move with practiced grace, like someone who knew exactly how much space she occupied in a room. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stood with her hands around the coffee mug, her back to me, her shoulders slightly tensed. I wasn't completely honest with you, she finally said. I waited. She turned slowly. Her eyes held something deeper now. Guilt, maybe, or something older. Vanessa and I, she began, and paused, searching for the words. We weren't just colleagues, or even friends. My pulse quickened. She exhaled, long and quiet. We were lovers. Years ago. The words didn't register at first. I blinked. What? She and I, we had a thing. Before she married you. Before she went full CEO mode. It was real. Or at least I thought it was. I stared at her, the entire world shifting under my feet. She never told me that. I said. Of course not, Brooke replied, almost bitterly. Vanessa doesn't tell people things that make her look human, vulnerable. But back then, she was different. We started as co-workers, grew close. It turned into something else. She used to whisper about building an empire with me by her side. My stomach churned. And then, Brooke's lips curled, not quite a smile. Then she realized 2 women in power wasn't a story she could sell to the world. So she found you. Someone who could be molded, presented. The perfect husband for the perfect image. That hit like a punch. Wait, I said, stepping back. Are you saying this, me, was some kind of rebound? No, Brooke said quickly. It wasn't about you, Daniel. She married you to complete the picture. You were a safe investment. The words burned. And you? I asked, the bitterness rising in my voice. What was last night to you? Another move in a long game? She stepped toward me. At first, maybe, she admitted. I was angry, still hurt. Vanessa left me cold, made me her shadow, then trotted you around like the trophy on her arm. So yes, when I saw how she ignored you, when I realized how invisible you'd become, I'll admit it, I saw an opportunity. I swallowed the lump forming in my throat. So I was a pawn. Brooke didn't flinch. I thought you would be, she said. But something changed. The more I talked to you, the more I saw you for who you are, not who she made you become. She took another step closer, her voice softening. I didn't plan for this. Not us. That night, I came over. I was supposed to drop off a folder and stir the pot. But then you offered me a drink. And then you told me about your father. And I saw the way you still felt things. Her voice caught. And I realized. I didn't want to destroy you. I wanted to save you. I didn't know what to say. My chest felt tight. My heart. A confused thud of emotion and betrayal and longing. And Vanessa? I finally asked. What would she say if she knew? Brooke's eyes sharpened. She'd kill me. Not literally. But she'd end me professionally. She'd find a way to ruin me without ever getting her hands dirty. So this is dangerous, I murmured. She gave a quiet, sardonic laugh. Daniel, this was always dangerous. We stood there for a long moment. The space between us filled with truth, regret, and something else, something terrifying and tender all at once. I should hate you, I said, though even as I said it, I didn't believe it. You don't, she said. And she was right. We moved toward each other again, almost reflexively. Her arms wrapped around me, her body pressed against mine, not in hunger this time, but in apology, in need. And when we kissed again, it wasn't about lust or revenge. It was about 2 broken pieces finding one another in the wreckage of a lie. Vanessa came back Monday morning. She kissed my cheek like nothing had changed, like the flight from Zurich had just added another notch on her resume. No questions about my weekend. No trace of suspicion. She walked through our apartment with her usual confident indifference, shedding her blazer, checking her phone, complaining about jet lag like she hadn't been missing for 4 days. I watched her move, wondering how many versions of this woman existed, and how many I'd blindly believed in. Later that night, when she finally collapsed into bed, I lay awake beside her, eyes on the ceiling, her presence beside me feeling like a stranger's. My phone buzzed once. A single message from Brooke. I'm ready if you are. We met in secret. Quiet rooftops. Parking garages. Cafes on the edge of town. There was something both cinematic and terrifying about it, like we were living a script we hadn't written but couldn't stop reading. At our first meeting, Brooke pulled out a leather binder. She set it on the table between us. This, she said, is where the bodies are buried. Inside were printouts, emails, internal memos, side-channel communications with shell companies and offshore accounts. A shadow empire Vanessa had built underneath her public-facing one. The kind of deals that didn't just bend the law, they broke it. She's built a legacy on lies, Brooke said. And if this leaks, it all burns. I turned page after page, numb. So much of it in her name. Some under proxies I recognized, college friends, her cousin, even one of our neighbors. She never trusted me with any of this, I muttered. She never trusted anyone, Brooke replied. That's how she stays in control. But control has blind spots. She looked at me then, not like a co-conspirator, but something gentler. You're not here because you hate her, she said. You're here because you finally see her. She was right. I didn't hate Vanessa. I pitied her. But I was done living in her shadow. We started slow. Anonymous tips to journalists. Quiet conversations with board members. A slight delay in a key shipment that would trigger a cascade of contractual failures. Just enough to raise eyebrows. Just enough to make the empire feel a little less invincible. Vanessa didn't notice at first. She was too busy planning her next media tour, too distracted by photo ops and brand consultants. But cracks started forming. A leaked discrepancy in quarterly projections. A board member who suddenly stopped replying to her emails. A client that walked without explanation. And as her world started shaking, mine began to shift. Brooke and I grew closer, not just in bed, though that was its own storm, intense and addicting, but in the quiet moments between. Her laugh in my kitchen. The way she leaned into me when she read. The simple intimacy of brushing her hair off her forehead while she slept on my shoulder. The sex wasn't just release anymore. It was gravity. Naked, beneath soft sheets and silence, we talked about dreams, real ones. Maybe we disappear, she whispered once. Start fresh. Small town. Clean slate. What would we do? I don't care, she said, curling against me. As long as it's us. I wanted that. God help me. I wanted that more than I'd wanted anything in years. But part of me still hesitated. Because for all her lies, Vanessa had once been everything to me. And some part of me still clung to the man I'd been when I believed in her. You're quiet, Brooke said one night, lying across my chest. I didn't answer. She pulled herself up, propping her head on her hand. You're wondering if I'm using you. I blinked. Are you? She held my gaze. I was. For a minute. But not anymore. I wanted to believe her. Every touch, every look made me want to. But doubt was a stubborn thing. One night, Vanessa came home early. Brooke and I had just parted ways in the underground parking garage. I took a different route, climbed the back stairwell, and entered the apartment from the service hall. Vanessa was already inside, standing in the kitchen, a glass of red wine in her hand, her eyes sharp. You smell like perfume, she said. I froze. She took a sip and tilted her head. Expensive. And not mine. I played dumb. Must be from the elevator. She didn't buy it. She stepped closer. You've been different lately. Distant. Distracted. Her eyes studied me like a predator calculating movement. I used to think I'd never lose you, she said softly. Not because of love, but because you needed me. I said nothing. She set her glass down. Just remember, Daniel, everything we have, everything you are, came from me. I smiled then. Not because she was right, but because she no longer realized she was wrong. That night, I texted Brooke. Let's finish it. It started with the headline. Whistleblower alleges financial misconduct at V. Mercer Group. One article. One source. Anonymous. But it was enough to light the fuse. By noon, the office was chaos. Phones ringing nonstop. Legal scrambling. PR teams on damage control. Vanessa stormed out of a meeting and locked herself in her office, the glass wall shielding her but not muting her rage. I watched it all unfold from across the street, inside a coffee shop, the building looming behind Brooke's reflection in the window as she stirred her cappuccino. She's going to lose her mind, I said, not looking away. She already has, Brooke replied. And she had. By the end of the day, half the board had requested an emergency meeting. 2 major investors issued formal inquiries. Someone leaked the emails Brooke had gathered, carefully scrubbed and anonymized. Vanessa's perfect image began to blur under the weight of actual scrutiny. But it wasn't the fallout that shook her. It was that she didn't know who had done it. I came home early that night. Vanessa was already there. Pacing. Did you see this shit? She asked, waving her phone at me like it was a weapon. They're painting me like some white-collar mob boss. It's absurd. I've done nothing wrong. I didn't speak. She narrowed her eyes. Say something. I shrugged. It sounds serious. She stared at me, her lips slightly parted. You don't believe I'm innocent, she said. Not a question, a realization. I looked at her, truly looked. She wore a black silk robe, loosely tied. Her hair was still flawless. Makeup subtle but immaculate. But her posture, Her tone, it was all unraveling. I believe, I said, that you're used to being untouchable, that you've built your kingdom on people who didn't question you. I was one of them. She stepped closer. Her voice dropped. You think this is my fault? I think I paused. I stopped knowing who you were a long time ago. Her face cracked for the first time. Not anger, not disgust, just fear. You think I'm cold, that I don't care about you. I know you don't. Silence. And then, is there someone else? She asked. I didn't answer. That silence was all the confirmation she needed. She stepped back, laughing bitterly. Wow, okay. You self-righteous little martyr. While I'm being torn apart by the media, you're out playing the betrayed husband with someone who actually listens to your feelings. I flinched. Don't act shocked, she hissed. You think I didn't notice the change in you? The sudden confidence? The way you walk into a room, now, like you're finally awake. She grabbed her wine from the counter and gulped it. You know what hurts the most? She said, quieter now. That I didn't even see it coming. I always thought I'd be the one to leave first. I stared at her, heart thudding. You never thought you could lose me. No, she admitted, voice breaking. Because I thought. I owned you. There it was. The truth. Raw. Ugly. Honest. She sat on the edge of the couch, burying her face in her hands. I didn't move. Didn't comfort her. The woman who built empires now sat broken in the ruins of her illusion, and I felt nothing. Later that night, I met Brooke. She was waiting in the park, under the warm glow of a streetlight. Her face lit up when she saw me, but it dimmed quickly when she read my expression. She knows, I said. She's smart, Brooke murmured. She'll figure out the rest soon. She already is. We walked in silence for a while. The city hummed around us. The weight of what we'd done pressed down like gravity. She's not just angry, I said. She's terrified. Brooke nodded. People like her don't handle powerlessness well. She's going to lash out. Are you ready for that? Brooke's jaw tightened. She'll come for me first. Professionally, personally. If she finds out I leaked the documents. She will. I know. She stopped walking and turned to face me. Do you regret it? She asked. Any of it? I reached out, brushed a strand of hair from her face. No, but I do wonder what happens next. She leaned into me, her hands sliding around my waist. Her eyes found mine in the dark. We stay ahead of her. We finish this. Her mouth found mine, and for a moment, the chaos faded. The fear, the guilt, it all disappeared beneath the heat of her lips, the weight of her against me, the slow, desperate need building in our bodies like fire. We made love that night in the back seat of my car, parked under the city lights, windows fogged and hearts pounding. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't soft. It was survival. It was two people burning the past to make room for something new. The next morning, Vanessa's name was trending everywhere. Mercer Empire under fire. Whistleblower confirms internal corruption. Source close to CEO alleged to be involved. The article didn't mention Brooke by name, but it didn't have to. My phone buzzed. Vanessa, you did this. And then, Vanessa, I hope she was worth it. I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off my phone, looked at the skyline, and waited for the rest to burn. Brooke was waiting at my place when I got home. Her shoulders were stiff, arms crossed, pacing in that anxious, precise rhythm that only someone used to control would use when it started slipping through their fingers. She knows, she said the moment I closed the door. She messaged me. I replied, setting down my keys. 2 words. That's all. But they hit like a damn verdict. Brooke rubbed her hands over her face. She called me 6 times. Left a voicemail the 7th. She didn't threaten me outright. Just asked me to lunch. Like she was inviting me to the gallows. I didn't like the sound of that. She's planning something, I said. She's already doing something. Brooke walked over to the kitchen island, pulled out her phone, and showed me the email. It was from the HR department. A formal inquiry into misconduct. Her access to several confidential databases had been revoked. Her calendar was suddenly booked with performance reviews. And her assistant had been reassigned without explanation. She's boxing me in, Brooke said, trying to push me out without leaving fingerprints. Quiet, professional exile. She's not going to do it clean, I said. Vanessa doesn't do clean. She does scorched earth. Brooke looked up at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but there was something worse there, fear. Not just for her job. Something deeper. She has pictures, Daniel. I froze. What? Of us. My phone pinged this morning with a message from a blocked number. No text, just a photo. You and me, kissing outside the garage. Time-stamped, framed like evidence. I swallowed hard. That's not just revenge. That's blackmail. She'll go public, Brooke whispered. Not with the affair with me. She'll call it manipulation, seduction. Say I infiltrated your marriage and used you to destroy her business. She's trying to rewrite the narrative, I said. Paint herself as the victim. Brooke laughed bitterly. It'll work. She's always known how to twist the story. I walked over, wrapped my arms around her. She collapsed into me like a dam breaking, her shoulders trembling. I'm sorry, she murmured into my chest. I didn't want this. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I tilted her chin up. Do you want out? I asked. Say the word, and I'll shut it down. Walk away from the plan. Walk away from everything if that's what it takes to keep you safe. She looked at me, eyes wide, wet, uncertain. Then she shook her head. If I fall, she whispered, I fall with you. That stopped me. Not because it was romantic, but because it was real. This wasn't some sexy, dramatic revenge fantasy anymore. This was our lives, our futures, our reputations. One wrong move, and we were done. We've come this far, she said, steadying herself. And she won't stop until she owns the ruins. Unless we burn it all before she does. The next few days were a blur of planning, pressure, and paranoia. Brooke moved out of her apartment. Said she needed space, but we both knew the real reason. She didn't trust that Vanessa hadn't planted something. A bug. A tracker. A camera. With Vanessa, nothing was off limits. We set up camp in my place, side by side at the dining table, screens open, documents spread out like battlefield maps. Every day brought a new blow. One of Brooke's contacts went dark. A mutual colleague forwarded her a passive-aggressive email from Vanessa suggesting Brooke was emotionally unstable. A blog hinted at an internal affair scandal about to surface at V. Mercer Group. The pressure cracked Brooke first. One night, after hours of silence, I found her curled in my bed, knees drawn up, staring at the ceiling like it had answers she couldn't find. I can't breathe, she said. I sat beside her. Then don't try to do it alone. She turned toward me, her voice barely above a whisper. You were never supposed to matter, Daniel. That was the plan. Get in close. Use what I knew. Cut the string. But you're not a string. You're gravity. I woke up next to you, and I didn't want to leave. I didn't want it to be a mission anymore. I just wanted you. She broke then, truly broke. Tears, messy and sharp. And I held her through it all. Because in that moment, I wasn't a husband. Or a pawn. Or even an accomplice. I was just the only person left who still saw her. Vanessa sent me a text the next morning. Meet me. No lawyers. No games. Just us. It was short. Simple. Dangerous. I showed it to Brooke. She's going to offer you a deal, she said. Should I go? No, Brooke said. But you will. Because you need to see how far she'll go. And I did. The rooftop bar was nearly empty. Just us and the skyline. Vanessa stood near the edge, hair swept back, red lipstick flawless. She looked like the woman I married. And nothing like her. You look tired, she said, not unkindly. Stress will do that, I replied. She gestured to a seat. I didn't take it. I know it was Brooke, she said. I just don't know how much of it was you. I didn't answer. She smiled. A cold, patient smile. I built everything. Every dollar. Every connection. Every move. You were my soft edge. My civility. But you forgot your place. I'm not an accessory, Vanessa. No, she said, standing straighter. You're a liability. I stared at her. Is that a threat? She leaned in, whisper close. No, Daniel. That's a warning. Then she walked past me, heels clicking on marble, and left me standing in the wreckage of what we'd once called love. That night, I went back to Brooke. She was curled on the couch, hair messy, wearing my shirt. Did she make you an offer? She asked. Not in words. But you saw it? Yeah, I said, sitting beside her. And I think she knows she's already lost. Brooke rested her head against me. She just hasn't figured out how yet. She couldn't sleep. It was nearly 3 a.m. when I felt her leave the bed, the warmth of her body replaced by cold sheets and absence. I heard the soft creak of the floorboards, the hush of a glass being poured in the kitchen. I found her standing by the window, wrapped in a blanket, staring out at the dark city. Her silhouette was calm, still, but her fingers trembled around the rim of the wine glass. Can't sleep? I asked gently. She didn't turn around. No. I've been lying there for hours, trying not to say it. I moved beside her, close but not touching. Say what? She took a slow sip, then exhaled through her nose. The truth. I watched her. Silent. She set the glass down on the counter like she couldn't bear to hold it anymore. When I first approached you, she began, her voice hoarse. It wasn't just curiosity. It wasn't even just revenge. I didn't speak. I targeted you, Daniel. My stomach dropped. I knew Vanessa. I knew how she worked. I knew the way she kept you as part of her image. The stable husband. The safe, dependable, soft-spoken man beside the hurricane. You were her narrative, and I wanted to tear it down. She finally turned to face me, and what I saw in her eyes wasn't pride. It wasn't strategy. It was shame, pure and real. I told myself you were a tool, she said. A way to get close. To crack her armor. She loved control, so I wanted to take something from her she couldn't replace. I backed up a step, my body stiff. So everything we did. No, she said quickly, closing the space between us. Not everything. Just the start. I wanted to be angry. I should have been angry. But I wasn't sure who I was more furious with, her, for using me, or myself, for needing her. I seduced you on purpose, she whispered. I planted moments. I showed up knowing what I was doing. I looked away. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. But what I didn't expect, what I never planned for, was how fast it stopped being about her. I met her gaze again. That night on the couch, she said. The first time you touched me like I mattered? That was the night the plan stopped. You should have told me, I said. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. I was afraid, she said, voice cracking. Afraid you'd walk away. That you'd see me the way she does. As a threat. As something to conquer or discard. She moved closer. Barefoot. Barefaced. Vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen her before. I've never had someone look at me and stay, Daniel. Not without an agenda. Not without needing me to be a weapon or a ladder or a ghost. But you looked at me like I was real. I didn't respond. Couldn't. I didn't fall in love with you during the plan, she said. I fell in love with you after. When I saw you watching me sleep. When I watched you tape up a shipping box because you didn't want my things to break. When you poured my coffee without asking how I liked it because you already knew. She reached for me. I love you, she said, the words almost broken. Not the version I used. Not the plan. You. I love you, Daniel. And if that's not enough, I'll leave. But I had to say it. I had to tell you the whole truth. The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at her. At the woman I trusted. Fought for. Fallen for. Slept beside. Conspired with. And yet, underneath the betrayal, I felt something else. She hadn't run. She hadn't lied again. She told me. And maybe that was more than Vanessa ever did. I stepped forward. Held her face in my hands. Her eyes closed like she was bracing for a slap. But all I did was kiss her. Slowly. Deliberately. Not out of lust, not out of anger, but out of choice. When I pulled away, I rested my forehead against hers. I believe you, I whispered. She started to cry. But this time, I didn't stop her. I just held her. Tight. Until the walls of everything we'd built, however messy, however misguided, wrapped around us again like something fragile, but ours. Later, as the sun began to rise, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the remnants of the plan we'd created, files, recordings, correspondence, all of it a testament to two broken people trying to take back power. But now, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about survival. It was about choosing who we'd be after the fall. It ended on a Tuesday. No press conference. No statement. Just a cold, calculated email from Vanessa's legal team, sent out at exactly 8 a.m. Effective immediately, Vanessa Mercer has resigned as CEO of V. Mercer Group. That was it. 19 words. The empire didn't crash in an explosion. It didn't even scream. It just folded. Quietly. Like a kingdom that realized it had no one left to rule. The headlines were swift. Speculation. Scandal. Silence. Her image, once flawless, now cracked wide open. Whispers became confirmation. The board disbanded the advisory council. Her name was scrubbed from upcoming conferences. Major partnerships dissolved like sugar in rainwater. Vanessa herself vanished. No interviews. No reappearance. Just gone. Some said she flew to Europe. Others claimed she retreated to a private compound in Costa Rica. It didn't matter. She wasn't here. And we were. Brooke and I packed the next week. Not in a rush. Not out of fear. Just ready. There was no more war to fight. No more empire to dismantle. No more secrets left to weaponize. We'd scorched the ground. What came next had to be built from nothing. We left the city just as spring bloomed, the skyline behind us glowing orange in the rearview mirror. She rested her hand on mine over the gear shift. No words, just warmth. We didn't talk much on the drive, but the silence wasn't hollow like it had been with Vanessa. This silence was soft, familiar, the kind that doesn't demand to be filled. We moved to a coastal town, quiet, off the grid, far enough that no one recognized our names, close enough that we could breathe. We found a small house with chipped paint and crooked floors. It smelled like cedar and dust. I fell in love with it instantly. So did she. The realtor handed us the keys and said, "It's got good bones." We just smiled. So did we. The first night in our new home, we didn't unpack. We didn't hang art or organize books. We made love on the hardwood floor between boxes. Slow, tender, no plans, no masks, just us. The air smelled like fresh paint and something that finally felt like beginning. Afterward, Brooke lay with her head on my chest, her fingers tracing idle circles. "I keep thinking it'll all catch up with us," she murmured. "It already did," I said. "And we're still here." She looked up at me. "Do you believe in second chances?" I nodded. "I believe in this one." She kissed me. The kind of kiss that says thank you and don't leave and this is real, all at once. We opened a little consultancy together. Nothing flashy, just enough to stay busy. Ethical startups, local nonprofits. Sometimes we declined work just because it didn't feel right. We learned how to be simple again. We took morning walks, ate dinner on the porch, fought over paint colors, laughed, fucked, slept in, argued, made up. Some days, we didn't mention the past at all. Other days, we acknowledged it with a glance, a hand squeeze, a shared silence. It was always there, what we'd done, what we'd survived, but it no longer owned us. It just reminded us of how far we'd come. One afternoon, 6 months after the fall, Brooke called out from the study. "Can you come here a second?" I walked in to find her standing beside a small desk. On it sat a framed photo, the two of us, taken during one of our beach walks, sun-drenched and half-laughing. Our shoulders leaned together like we had nowhere else to be. She ran a finger across the desk's surface and smiled. "I think I'm ready," she said. "To stop hiding." I raised a brow. "Ready for what?" She lifted the frame, set it gently on the desk. "My desk," she said. I looked at her, messy bun, soft t-shirt, paint smudged on her hand. She wasn't Vanessa. She didn't want a throne. She wanted us. She ran her empire, Brooke said, echoing the past. Then she stepped into me, wrapped her arms around my neck, and whispered, "Now we build ours."